Hey everybody, how you doing? Another episode of RotoViz Live. We've got Michigan Speedway this time, so uh, nice to be back on a normal schedule. We got practice after qualifying. We had a bunch of time to set our lineups last night. We've had some time to set our lineups up this morning, so pretty exciting. Pretty exciting to be back on a normal schedule for me, certainly. So. We're gonna dive right into it. I know there's some things happening in the NASCAR world. Brad Keselowski made some comments about how maybe the Toyotas are sandbagging, so we'll dig through a little bit of that and everything. But I have to pull up this hashtag right now, and that way I can see all of your guys' questions. So remember, tweet at me with the hashtag RV Live. I won't see it if it doesn't have the hashtag RV Live. So, yeah, make sure you have the hashtag RV Live or I won't be able to see or answer your question, because if I can't see it, I can't answer it. So, that's kind of what we got going on there. Got the Paul Menard hat, got my Budweiser. We're basically back to normal here, so it feels pretty good. I'm pretty excited. And first of all, I have to remind everybody you can get a listeners only 30% discount to a RotoViz NASCAR pass using the listener only 30% discount to RotoViz NASCAR Pass. Go to rotoviz.com/NASCAR podcast for that discount. It'll take you through the rest of the year. It's still better than signing up weekly or even monthly for the RotoViz subscription. If you're a listener, make sure you take advantage of that discount, rotoviz.com/NASCAR podcast. All right, so it's time to get to some listener questions. And the first one we had, hashtag RV Live. Thoughts on the rumor going around that the Toyotas intentionally dialed it back during qualifying. So this is what I kind of alluded to at the top of the show here. Brad Keselowski made some comments that he thinks the Toyotas are sandbagging. That's was kind of visible in qualifying, where the first Toyota to qualify was Matt Kenseth in fourth, and really, Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, who are always right at the top of things, were not at the top of the field in qualifying, and even in practice, the Fords have been the best. So. Denny Hamlin responded with an eye roll, I think, it was Martin Truex Jr. responded with an eye roll. Denny Hamlin called it fake news. Kyle Busch said, Brad Keselowski is a fucking idiot. So a lot of pushback on what Brad Keselowski said. So I know people are asking me, and unfortunately, I can't answer that question whether the Toyotas are sandbagging or not. I don't know. I think if somebody knew for sure, then they would, then there wouldn't be this controversy, this question over it. Brad Keselowski, I guess, thinks he knows for sure that they're sandbagging. The Toyotas claim they're not. So if the Toyotas are not sandbagging, then they're just not super fast this weekend, which makes the Fords the best play this weekend. Maybe along with some of the Hendrick engine Chevys. So that would be the Hendrick team, plus the two Ganassi drivers of Kyle Larson and Jamie McMurray, who also run Hendrick engines. So those might be the best plays, with a couple Toyotas, of course, mixed in. But if Toyotas really are sandbagging and they're going to unleash things during the race, then stacking the Toyotas becomes an interesting play as well. So I have no idea. I don't know how to answer this question. I'm just going to play it like a normal week and ignore any talk about sandbagging. That's really all I can do there. Next question. You mentioned excluding, should we, here we go. Should we lower ownership for drivers who crashed in practice, Jimmy Johnson, Casey Kane, and are in backup cars, or no big deal? So, yeah, we should talk about that. Jimmy Johnson and Casey Kane crashed in final practice, as did Ricky Stenhouse Jr., but Johnson and Kane had hard enough hits that they will have to go to the rear of the field. So they qualified, I think it was 22nd and 23rd respectively. So for DraftKings scoring purposes, they will be scored. They will be scored from 22nd and 23rd, but they will start the race at the back end of the field, at the tail end of the field. So it's like effectively like a penalty, like getting a pit penalty and having to start at the tail end of the lead line. So they will start with negative place differential points, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about them. Going to a backup car, it's the Hendrick shop. Their backup cars are going to be almost, if not just as good as their main cars. So I'm not worried about either team wrecking their car in final practice. So You know, no issues there for me. I think everything's gonna be fine for both Kane and Johnson. Ricky Stenhouse also had a tag with the wall, but they were able to repair the damage there. So, you know, no big deal there for me. So, let's move on to the next question. Hashtag RV Live, can you talk about stacking strategy? Yeah, so we talked about it on the podcast, the main podcast on the daily. And I like stacking like engines. You know, whether it is the Penske guys, sorry, not the Penske guys, whether it's, the Penske guys, or maybe the Hendrick engines, or maybe if we think the Toyotas are doing something, the Toyota engines. But yeah, I think either way, it's, you know, stacking is kind of fun to do, and especially at a track like Michigan, it could be profitable where we get this separation of speeds. So, yeah, I mean, it's a strategy we can do. I just don't think it's a strategy we have to do. I'm not, you know, I like stacking, and I've definitely stacked some Penske lineups. I've done a couple Toyota stacks, and I've definitely done some Hendrick stacks, but it's not something I would go crazy on as well. That's all I really have to say about that. I think stacking isn't anything where, you know, it's a must do. So that's my thought on stacking for this week. Sorry, I was a little distracted looking something up there. Hashtag RV Live. Please stop recommending Dale Earnhardt Jr. to me. I beg of you, please. He's a good play again this week. He loves his car. He tweeted it out. He was pretty excited to race today. Certainly, he's got a fast car. We saw it in both final practice sessions. Practicing inside the top 10 there in both practice sessions. Let me flip over to the practice tab. And yeah, practice 6th in both practice sessions. So certainly Dale Earnhardt Jr. is one of the better plays this weekend, and that's why we have to keep recommending him, because he's a very good play this weekend. And you know, I knew this was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. People were saying they're never going to play Dale Earnhardt Jr. again. Never, ever, ever. No, no, no. Then he goes and qualifies 19th, and then practices inside the top 10 in each practice session. Tweets out after every practice session he loves his car, and we're all back on him. So, you know. I think he's a good play this weekend. As long as he doesn't have another problem. And I mean, yeah, he's had some problems lately, but out of the last 11 races, he's only had 4 problems. I mean, I say only, like it feels like a lot, because it is for 11 races. But 7 times he's not had problems, and his average finish in those races are 11.1 with a couple top 10s there. So a few top 10s. So he's not been a bad driver, and he's priced down there at the 16th highest price. I like him this week. Hashtag RV Live. Can you recommend what contests I should enter with only $30 of entries? So I like playing a structure that pays out more than 20% of the field, maybe 25. There's a couple different tournaments that pay out 25, 27% of the field. Plus, I'd also put some of that in cash games. So maybe $10 in cash games or something like that, and then $20 I'd do a few buy-ins in a field that has a flatter payout structure. So for example, I think it's usually the $9 tournament, but they made the Beast or whatever it's called. It's called something different this week. They always change in names, but the $9 one usually had a flatter payout, but I think maybe there is a smaller tournament that has a flatter payout structure as well. So look how many places get paid out, and then divide that by the total number of entrants, and that way you'll see what percentage get paid out. So that's what I would do when I'm trying to manage a bankroll, is instead of taking shots at the huge $50,000 prize, because you're probably not going to get it, drop down in stakes and play some flatter structure tournaments and give yourself multiple chances to score a big one, and play a little more conservative, maybe a little more chalky if you're worried about growing a bankroll. Next question, hashtag RV Live. Ty Dillon's going to be so highly owned. What are 2 good pivots off of him for GPPs? So the first pivot I like off of Ty Dillon is AJ Allmendinger at $6,300, $300 cheaper. Second pivot I like off of Ty Dillon is Trevor Bayne. Now, I know we're back on the Bayne train here, but Bayne qualified 21st, but What I really like doing if I'm going to avoid tie is actually taking a different strategy altogether and maybe dropping down into the 6,000, 5,900 and doing like an Almirola Buescher lineup, and that leaves you the opportunity to do 4 drivers that are more expensive. So if I'm going off of Ty Dillon, I like taking an alternate strategy where instead of pivoting off of him towards another person close in price, I might just go with a completely different roster construction strategy there. Next question, hashtag RV Live. How many Dominators are you using per lineup? It depends on the lineup. Certainly a Keselowski, Larson, Keselowski Truex, Keselowski Larson Truex lineup. Those are all certainly possible. I have a few of those. I think they're going to be pretty chalky, but that's why I like doing one of Keselowski plus one of Larson or Truex in most of my lineups and not doing both of them in all my lineups. But then, of course, it also makes sense that Truex is pretty heavily priced, and if he doesn't lead laps, it's going to be hard for him to be in the winning lineup. Same with Kyle Larson. So there is some things I think you could do Keselowski, and then maybe hope he and his teammate, Logano, swap the lead and do a Keselowski-Logano lineup instead, or you could do a Keselowski and Ryan Blaney lineup. Maybe Ryan Blaney comes forward and leads. He's been really fast all weekend. So there's other things you can do, but certainly if I'm doing in terms of a number of Dominators, I'm usually planning for 2 and occasionally a 3rd Dominator in most of my lineups. I think with the way qualifying worked out with Larson and Truex being a little further back, I do like some 3 Dominator lineups as well. And it doesn't have to be Keselowski, Larson, Truex. Like I said, it could be Keselowski, Larson, and Matt Kenseth, or Keselowski. Larson and Kenseth, I think, might have a little negative correlation more so than Truex and Kenseth. But I think there's certainly possible Dominators. You could go different combinations. Next question, hashtag RV Live. Who's your favorite driver, 7.1K and lower besides Ty Dillon? The model seems to like Menard. I know Menard is an interesting play for everybody because he's got a very good track history from here, but he's just been so slow this weekend. So he'll probably move up some places, but I think in GPPs he's probably not going to be in a winning lineup. He's fine in cash games, but I think in GPPs he's a tougher sell for me there in GPPs. So I like a little less Menard. And then if we're looking at under 7K, I think my favorite play under 7K is either Almirola, Buescher, Trevor Bayne, one of those types of plays, AJ Allmendinger. Those are the 4 I'm really using outside of Ty Dillon below 7.1. And I know a lot of people will be off of Buescher because he's starting so far forward. But Buescher actually did, he qualified 20th. But he actually did practice 18th in the final practice session, and he practiced 22nd in the second practice session. So both of his practices were right around his starting position. So let's say he finishes around his starting position, maybe picks up a few spots through attrition. Even if he finishes like 18th, then that's going to be 26, 27, 28 points for a driver who is under $6,000. That's not bad. Now, if he were to pick up another 4 or 5 places, then even better. So let's say he picks up 2 places on speed, 4 places on attrition. That's 6 places of place differential. That would give him a 14th place finish. That's certainly within the range of outcomes. It's kind of on his high-end GPP side of his range of outcomes there. So, what do I have for his upside? If you were listening to the pod, I recommended looking at Chris Buescher's projected finish from the model, which is 21.4, subtract 7, so that's 14.4, and then average it with the upside finish from the NASCAR Sims app, so rotoviz.com/NASCAR-Sims. So I'm looking that up right now, but and let's find Chris Buescher here. So 17 is his upside there. So I have 17 and a 13.4. So you average 17 and 13.4, you get 15.7. So his upside is somewhere in that 15.7 range, give or take a couple places, 13 to 17, somewhere in there. So let's say he finishes 16th, right? That's 4 places gained. 4 places gained, so 44 minus 16 plus 28 plus 4, 32 for a driver who's under $6,000. That's more than 5x. And what it does is allow you to get a couple more expensive guys in there who can rack up those Dominator points. So that's why I like Chris Buescher. I think people will be off of him. So rounding out the question, who's my favorite driver under 7.1K? I like a few of them. I think Chris Buescher is a sneaky play because he's going to be very low owned. Now, I wouldn't go bananas on Chris Buescher, but I do like him as a play. Let me see how much Chris Buescher I have. It is loading here. 1 second. Looks like I have, 21 out of 100 and about 25 out of 150. So I'm going pretty heavy on him at like 15%. I think that's probably a little high for most of you who are less risk averse. But even 10% for you guys, or 8%, I think will probably be equal to or above weight on the field. So that's kind of, what my thoughts on Chris Buescher right there. Next question, hashtag RV Live. Do you prefer Newman or Dale Jr. in cash, independent of price? So this is where we get into a little bit of an interesting situation where when you say independent of price, I'm not sure if you mean just a 1 versus 1, or if you mean what they allow you to do for your roster construction. So I'm just going to do it as a 1 versus 1. In this case, I would prefer Newman in cash to Dale Jr. just as a 1-on-1. I might prefer Dale Jr. if there was roster construction implications. So it's not as easy a question to answer, as straightforward. Hashtag RV Live. Is there anyone based on the points chase being out of it that you'll fade? No, I think people who are out of it on the points chase actually make for interesting GPP plays because they're going to take different strategies to try to win. Their goal is to win, right? They're going boom or bust. Dale Jr. is a boom or bust play. Matt Kenseth is a boom or bust play. Clint Boyer, boom or bust play probably. So you got some boom or bust plays here that I think, are because of the point standing situation. Joey Logano, boom or bust play. Next question, hashtag RV Live. Over under 45 laps led for Keselowski. I'm going to say, dang, that's tough. 45 is a good number there. Let me think on this on a sip of beer. But I'm going to go with over. I think Keselowski leads more than 45 laps. Actually, I changed my mind. I'm going to go with under. I wonder if there's going to be some strategy for Team Penske where they let Joey Logano get out front and Keselowski protects for him to try to get him stage points. I know it's a kind of an awkward strategy because the stages are pretty long. So there's a chance of that. There's also Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr., who are lurking. I don't think, obviously it could be that Keselowski gets out front and Logano protects for him. So I would, that's really tough. I'm going to say over. My final answer is over, but that's a really, really good line. I think either Keselowski protects for Logano or Logano protects for Keselowski. And if it's probably more likely Logano protects for Keselowski because Keselowski's on the pole. He's probably got the faster car. So I think over 45 laps led. Over under 7th place finish on Jimmy Johnson. I'm going to say worse than a 7th place finish. I think he probably gets around an 8th or 9th, maybe a 10th place finish. Hashtag RV Live. I'm torn. Should I fade Kyle Busch since he sucks at Michigan or take a few shots with him since he's been so dominant this year? I think there's two avenues here, and both are... The safe avenue is to fade him because he needs to lead laps and get Dominator points to make value. Plus, he also is starting further forward than... sorry, Dina's back there, my wife, coughing up a storm. Starting further forward, I should say, than Kyle Larson and Martin Truex Jr., So I think, he makes a very sensible fade. The thing is that I think a lot of people will realize that he makes a sensible fade with his bad track history, starting too far forward. He needs Dominator points, probably won't get them. That if he goes 10% owned, 15% owned, there may be some argument to playing him 20% or something like that and getting a little leverage on the field should he actually do something, or even 25%. But that's a very risky play. That's high risk, certainly, as a play. I am not going that route, so I'm taking my high risk plays in a different way this week. Like I said, Chris Buescher, for example. Hashtag RV Live. Hold on 1 second. Hashtag RV Live. convince me in the world that this will finally be the week that Logano doesn't have a crappy performance. His car has been awful. Well, his car has not been awful this week. He's been pretty fast in practice and in qualifying. Obviously, third in final practice, qualified second. He's a boomer bust play. He's a driver that can either win or lose. But just like Dale Earnhardt Jr., he's been he's had a lot of problems, but in Logano's case, it's been more of a lack of speed, whereas Junior hasn't really had a lack of speed. He has maybe at times, but Logano has far more consistently had a lack of speed. It looks like they have it this week. It looks like the Fords are the team to beat. If you also take into consideration Ryan Blaney, who's just been super fast across the board in all practices and qualifying, it looks like the Team Penske cars, Keselowski, Logano, and Blaney might be the team to beat, so I certainly don't mind some Logano today, especially because he needs to win. He absolutely needs to win. What's going on? You're pacing around right in front of me. I got the Roto Dog here, got the wife here. Hashtag RV Live. Follow-up question. So if I fade Kyle Busch, that frees up over $10,000 in potential salary. Who should I play instead? Well, we've talked about those guys, Truex, Larson. We haven't talked much about Kevin Harvick. I think he's going to be pretty low owned. But let's say, for example, that the Fords are off a little bit. Not the Fords, but the Penske's are off a little bit. Then Kevin Harvick is the first one there, and then Matt Kenseth is the first one there in a Toyota to take advantage. So both of those make for interesting GPP flyers, both Kenseth and Harvick. Just don't play them in the same lineup. They have very much negative correlation, Harvick and Kenseth. I would not play them in the same lineup, but both of them are good contrarian plays to dominate and are in that upper, mid to upper 9,000 range. Hashtag RV Live is Kane starting from the rear. It's not going to affect how much I use him, I'll say that much, and I believe he is starting from the rear. Let me, I talked about it right at the top of the show, but I want to double check and confirm. But one second. Yeah, Case Kane, Jimmy Johnson, and Matt DiBenedetto headed to the rear with backup cars. So those are the three that are going to the rear. So I forgot to mention DiBenedetto at the top of the show. So yes, Kane's going to the rear. It isn't really going to affect how much I use him today. I think I'll probably be in the 25% range on Kane. It just seems to make sense. He's starting 23rd. He's when he has practiced, obviously in his main car, he was faster than his qualifying place. So he's qualified 23rd, practice 13th and 17th. So if the backup car is similar, if it's similar, then he'll be a good play. I mean, not a great play, but a good play. Hashtag RV Live. Danica's been doing very well the past month. Is this the week where she either crashes or just has a finish outside the top 15 or 20? I think so. Not necessarily that she crashes, but I think this is just a race where I'm pretty much not really on her because she qualified 18th. Practice has been 27th, 29th. She's just looking slow there. I know she's in a car that has a lot of good horsepower there, but it doesn't seem like she's getting through the turns very well for whatever reason. So I'm not really on Danica today. Qualified too far forward for me relative to how she's looked in practice. Joy or Moffitt? That's actually a question I've been struggling with there as well. When I do dip down all the way under 5K, which is very rare, I usually just make two lineups and put one LaJoy and one Moffitt lineup. So if gun to my head, I have to pick one. I'm probably going to go with Moffitt, but that's I don't really have a reason other than I think he's better. Hashtag RV Live. Thoughts on fading Keselowski and going to Harvick due to ownership percentage? Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the plays there is Keselowski's going to be 50% owned. Then if you want to take some risk and avoid him, Harvick is one of those guys that could push him. Rodney Childers tweeted out that they were really happy with their car at the end of happy hour. So when Harvick's happy with his car, he's always a threat, and Fords have been really fast. So I definitely have some exposure to Harvick this weekend, especially in some non-Keselowski lineups. I think Harvick is certainly an interesting play there. Next question, hashtag RV Live. I have to load up some more questions here. We've been getting a lot. Who is the GPP special pick of the week? Your Menard pick of the week. Everybody calls it the Menard pick because of the pick I made back at Daytona when Menard won all the monies for RotoViz listeners. The Menard pick of the week this week, I did talk about Chris Buescher. I think Kurt Busch and Daniel Suarez are also two very interesting GPP plays I like, starting in the middle of the field that nobody's talking about. If one of these two gets a top 8 or 10 finish, then they could very well be in the winning lineup. And, Kurt Busch did practice 6 in 2 spots better than his qualifying spot in the 2 post-qualifying practice sessions, and Suarez practiced 2 in 7 spots better. So those two I like as GPP plays this week. Most of my lineups I'd do one or the other of the two and not both because they're in that same price range. So they're kind of pivots off of each other. Same price range and same qualifying range and same practice range. So they're really hard to separate this week. So I like doing like with the LaJoie and Moffitt question, doing 2 lineups and then playing one Kurt Busch, one Daniel Suarez. Hashtag RV Live thoughts on Eric Jones and Suarez. They've looked fast this weekend so far. Eric Jones is a little tougher sell there because he's starting up inside the top 8 and he's priced higher. So I like Daniel Suarez better because he has some place differential he can make up, and he is cheaper. So I like Daniel Suarez better of the two for sure. Next question, hashtag RV Live. Whoa, my thing just freaked out there. All right, hashtag RV Live. How much Keselowski is too much? I'd say once you get above 50-60%, you're going too overboard. I think really the GTO is probably around in that 40 to 50% range. But I think if you want to go overweight on Keselowski, probably 60% is fine. I think once you get above 60%, it's too much. There's certainly some things that can happen here at Michigan. Certainly some fast cars that we've seen other than just Keselowski. But 60% I think is like where I would be as a ceiling this week. Hashtag let me make sure actually before we move on, because I know I do have a decent amount of Keselowski and I don't want to over or undersell. I think 65% could even be fine now that I think about it. But what's my exposure? I don't want to mislead people here. It's loading up. Yeah, mine's just under 60%. So that's what I'll say there. But I think. I think GTO is 40, 50, 60% range, and maybe the 60% range is on the little overside, and the 40% side is maybe on the little underside. I think really around 50% this week is probably a good number for Keselowski, and I'm going I think maybe a touch overweight on him this week. Hashtag RV Live. Newman versus Dale in cash. We already talked about this one, and if it's a 1v1, again, I'll take Newman, but if it has roster construction implications, I won't necessarily take Newman. Hashtag RV Live, you still off of the Joe Dirt cheap drivers? For the most part, like I said, I probably will have up to maybe 10% of them. I certainly have, as we just talked about, Moffitt versus LaJoie lineups. I have a couple, I think, Landon Castle, maybe a David Reagan, maybe a couple Michael McDowells. And that's it. And I'm not counting Chris Buescher in the Joe Dirt cheap range this week. He qualified far enough forward. I'm kind of counting him in that main pack because he's really not a Joe Dirt driver. He's really is like a mid-pack driver with that JTG equipment, Allmendinger. So I'm not counting. Aside from Chris Buescher, I think I'm mostly off of the Joe Dirt cheap drivers. I probably have a total of about 10% exposure combined. Hashtag RV Live, if you had to pick 2 Chevys that can compete for a top 5, who do you have? Certainly, I like Kyle Larson as a top 5. I mean, Kyle Larson's won here twice in a row, and the last 3 2-mile ovals. Kyle Larson, definitely a Chevy that can compete for a top 5. I think second probably would have to be Dale Jr. Dale Jr. practiced 6 in both post-qualifying practice sessions. He's one of the 2 Hendrick drivers that did not wreck his car, Chase Elliott being the other, but Chase Elliott hasn't looked as good, hasn't been as happy with his car as Dale. So Jamie McMurray, I guess, could maybe, but I'm really going with Dale and Kyle Larson as the 2 Chevys I like this week as my 2 favorite Chevys for a top 5 finish. We just talked about Danica. Hashtag RV Live. Who has the better chance of a narrative street win, Blaney or Junior? I think Junior has the better chance of a narrative street win. Obviously a track he's won at twice before, and he's looked good this weekend, going out with a bang. He's been having a lot of problems. I think Junior is is an interesting narrative street win. Now, that said, I still think Blaney can win. He's been very fast, one of the fastest. But I don't think narrative street is necessarily going to drive the win as much as Junior. That said, I really don't think narrative street will drive a win. It's just going to be who puts themselves in position to win, maybe catches a couple breaks with strategy, and brings it home at the end. So I don't really put too much stock in narrative street, especially here at Michigan. Hashtag RV Live. Stenhouse good to go after kissing the wall in practice. Yeah, they repaired the car. He should be good to go. Next question, hashtag RV Live. Would you play Dale Jr. in cash? I think it's certainly possible to play Dale Jr. in cash, definitely. 19th place qualifying position, one of the top 6 practice speeds in both of the post-qualifying practice sessions. Very happy with this car. I know a lot of people won't like it because he's been risky lately, but he has been a little bit boomer bust. But I think there's more safety this weekend in Junior than others, given the starting position, given how fast he's practiced, given this is one of his best tracks. I think this is a good week to play Dale Jr. in cash if you want to, certainly. Hashtag RV Live. How much is too much Ty Dillon in GPPs? I think around that 65% number is good. I think Ty Dillon is another driver that will be heavily owned. So, it really depends on your risk tolerance. I think it also depends on the size of the field. It really depends on the size of the field as well. In super big fields, super big GPPs, I think you can be more underweight on Ty Dillon because you're trying to win. Then if there's a gazillion people and he's 60% owned, that's a great way to beat 60% of a gazillion people. In a smaller tournament, where even just cashing is a little easier, I think it's okay to go a little more chalky on Ty Dillon. So 65% is kind of like the upper bound range that I'd like to go on him right there. So yeah, that's about where I am on Ty Dillon as well in terms of what his upper bound range would be. So hashtag RV Live, what's your drink of choice right now? Coffee or Budweiser or both? I would love to have a coffee right now, but I haven't made any coffee yet. So I'm drinking a Budweiser right now. Hashtag RV Live. Will you comment on your hometown? I know it's been weighing on you and others. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, I was born and raised in Charlottesville, Virginia. Right there, right next to just a couple miles from downtown. And I was always a big UVA fan, University of Virginia. Both my parents taught at UVA. 2 of my brothers went there. One of them played soccer at UVA. So I've always been a Virginia sports fan, a Charlottesville guy. I love it. Beautiful city, wonderful people, great town. And just kind of sucks to see what happened there. Just thinking of everybody there. Everybody I know is okay. But, unfortunately, the lady who lost her life, she was a friend of my former boss. I used to work at a coffee shop there, and my boss's friend there, unfortunately, was the one who got hit. So pretty sad. It's been a tough day for my hometown. I moved out of Charlottesville when I went to college at James Madison University, but still went back every summer because JMU is only 50 minutes away from Charlottesville. So really, I feel like I've been in Charlottesville for 21, 22 years of my life, and I'm only 33. So 2/3 of my life is really been a lot about Charlottesville. Next question, hashtag RV Live. Would you consider playing a driver in cash cheaper than Ty Dillon? I think so, yeah. I think there are some plays. I think you're going to have to probably play somebody cheaper than Ty Dillon this week, just given how things shake out. So yeah, I would consider playing a driver cheaper than Ty Dillon. Hashtag RV Live. Is Ty Dillon greater than Trevor Bayne for GPP? Yeah, I mean, he's definitely better than Trevor Bayne for GPP. The thing is, Trevor Bayne's going to be, 15% owned, and Ty Dillon's going to be 55% owned, something like that. So there is an argument for, pivoting off of Ty Dillon and onto Trevor Bayne. Should something happen to Ty Dillon, then there's an argument there. But yes, Ty Dillon is greater than Trevor Bayne for GPP. Even considering ownership percentage, I think he's greater than. I like, if I'm going to play Trevor Bayne, I like doing it with Ty Dillon in some lineups and then playing 4 expensive guys. Hashtag RV Live. Bayne's slow practice times concerning, considering Michigan horsepower race. Bayne has not had slow practice times. Bayne's actually been pretty good in practice. 20th and 20th when he qualified 21st. So better than he qualified. Obviously, there can be a few cars that get lost through attrition. So, I mean, he doesn't have super massive upside, which is, again, why I prefer Ty Dillon to Bayne, because Ty Dillon's upside qualified 33rd. He finished this race 20th earlier in the year. That's 13 places of place differential. Bayne doesn't have 13 places of place differential potential, barring some kind of strategy or some kind of wreck fest, some kind of strategy call a wreck fest there at the end. If it's just based off pure speed and a little bit of attrition, his upside's probably around an 18th, 17th, 16th place finish. Which is nowhere near the upside of Ty Dillon's in terms of place differential potential. So Bayne is still a decent play, though. I just don't know how decent of a play he is. Is he a 15 to 20% decent play? Is he a 25% decent play? 10% decent play? That's somewhere that's kind of the range I've been thinking about with Bayne, is trying to figure out if I'm going to go in the 10 to 25% range. But I certainly don't think he should be ignored this weekend. Anytime a driver practices better than they qualify, even if it's only one spot, and especially in this case, it happened in both practice sessions, he's a driver I at least want to take note of and have in some of my lineups. Hashtag RV Live. How much cap space would you leave on the table this week? I've had lineups with up to 2K left. That might be pushing it a little. I think most of my lineups are $700-800 or less left on the table. I don't see much reason to leave a ton of cap room this week, but that's just my thoughts right there on leaving cap space. So I think there we go, my internet froze trying to pull up questions. Here we go. Hashtag Brett Moffitt worth it as a scrub. Yeah, we talked about that. If you really are going that construction, I think it's either Brett Moffitt or Corey LaJoy. Next question, hashtag RV Live. Would you take the 42 and the 78 over Brad and Cash? I remember, if you read my article, I'm playing Brad and Cash. So make sure to read my article there. Hashtag RV Live. Seems like figuring 6.7 to 5.9. Can you rank them for GPP? Sure. So let me pull up the pricing. Sorry, I need to pull up the pricing here. Let me sort it by price. And what's the price range there? 6.7 to... You okay there? 6.7 to 5.9K. 6.7 to 5.9K. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Trevor Bayne, Ty Dillon, Paul Menard, Danica Patrick, AJ Allmendinger, Eric Almirola, and Chris Buescher. So I think in terms of for GPP, relative to their price, the amount of points they can score, ownership, and price figured in, and all that stuff, I think I'm going to go number one, of course, Ty Dillon. Number two, I like maybe Eric Almirola. Number three, Chris Buescher. Number four, Trevor Bayne. Number four, AJ Allmendinger. Number five, Trevor Bayne. Number six, Danica. Number six, Menard. Number seven, Danica. I think Menard's going to be too chalky this week, and he doesn't have a ton of upside. So, yeah, that's my rankings there. Once again, that was number one, Ty Dillon. Number two, Almirola. Number three, Buescher. Number four, Allmendinger. Number five, Bayne. Number six, Menard. Number seven, Danica. That's how I would rank him in that range there. All right, hashtag RV Live. Do you think Kyle Busch is getting overlooked this week? Seems to have a team rivalry going with the 78 who won last week. I think he is going overlooked. If he's going to be 15%, there's probably that's probably about the probability that he wins the race. So, 1 in 6 times, I think he could maybe win this Michigan race. He might even be like 10%. I don't know. I think he'll probably be around 15% though. And in that case, I don't think it really makes sense to go too much overweight on him. There is still a lot of people in NASCAR DFS who kind of just don't know what they're doing. And so, they pick Kyle Busch because he's got name recognition. And so that'll keep his ownership percentage higher than I think I want it to be for me to have much exposure to him. Hashtag RV Live. Any truth to Keselowski's comments about Toyota sandbagging? Sorry if you covered this, just appeared late. That's fine, no problem. Yeah, I think Keselowski. I think he's trying to rile up the Toyotas there. I don't know if they're sandbagging. I don't even think Keselowski knows if they're sandbagging. I don't know if there's any truth to it. So we talked about this at the top of the show, but I think what it does, it makes stacks a little interesting. You could either stack the Penske guys or you could stack the Toyota guys. And if you're playing multiple lineups, I think stacks of each make a little bit of sense. Hashtag RV Live. Does Newman have any appeal for GPPs? Certainly. Like I said, any driver that practices better than they qualify in terms of their practice versus qualifying rank is in play. Newman qualified 25th, practiced 21st in both post-qualifying practice sessions. Obviously, he can strategy his way even further forward if you know, or pick up places through attrition or things like that. So there is interest in there for me. The couple issues I have with Newman are, one, his price is higher than, you know, those guys that he's competing with there, like Almirola, who's probably got a similar range of outcomes, or Trevor Bayne, who has a similar range of outcomes. So he's priced a little higher than those. It makes roster construction tough. The other problem I have there with Newman is if you compare him to guys who are a little more expensive than him. I mentioned Suarez and Kurt Busch, who are, you know, especially Suarez only a few $100s. Casey Kane is a few $100s more, and then Kurt Busch like $700 more. I thought all three of those I think are better GPP plays than Newman. So I've had trouble playing Newman, but I think he will actually absorb some ownership percentage just because I think the instant reaction in qualifying was people liked the fact that Newman qualified 25th. Hashtag RV Live. Any McDowell love? I certainly don't mind some McDowell. I just wouldn't go bananas on him. Like I said, I think in the Joe Dirt cheap range, I have a total of about 10 to 15%. And so McDowell makes up a few percent of that, maybe 3 to 5% for me. But I wouldn't go bananas, 8% tops if you want to be a little more risky on the Joe Dirt cheap range for a specific driver like McDowell. So 10 to 15% is my total, I think, Joe Dirt exposure. Bubba Wallace Jr. won in trucks. Sam Hornish Jr. won in Xfinity. Which Jr. will complete the trifecta today? Well, it's not going to be Ricky Stenhouse Jr. It's either going to be Martin Truex Jr. or Dale Jr. I think, Truex would be the favorite of the two, but Dale really likes his car. So let's roll the dice and go with Dale Earnhardt Jr. Hashtag RV Live. Rather be contrarian 100% Dillon, Keselowski, or below the field. It depends on the tournament you're playing. I think if you're playing a chalkier tournament, if you're playing a super large tournament, I'd rather go under. If you're playing a smaller tournament, I'd rather go over on them. So that's kind of my thoughts right there. Hashtag RV Live. Do you like Truex as much as the model does? Yeah, I think Truex was very good in final practice. Certainly second best overall time, fourth best 10-lap time. So I don't mind Truex. I just I don't think he's necessarily a lock to dominate this weekend, like some other weekends. Hashtag RV Live had something in my teeth there. Was it qualifying Friday? Blaney looked fantastic. Is starting 12th low enough to justify being overweight in the field in GPPs? I think a lot of people are going to be on Blaney. Both myself and Stevie wrote him up as GPP plays, so I think he's going to absorb a lot of ownership percentage. That said, I still have a lot of Blaney in GPPs. Hashtag RV Live. Thoughts on McDowell? We just talked about him, or Buscher. So we talked about Buscher at the top of the show. I do like Buscher. Hashtag RV Live. Thoughts on RCR stack at the bottom, including Dillon with Newman and Menard. I really hate that play. No offense. RCR has been slow. So just not a big fan of RCR this weekend. They really haven't shown a ton of speed. Hashtag RV Live. How much should I leave on the table in mass multi-entry builds? So we just talked about this. I think up to like 800, maybe even up to 1,200 is okay, but most of mine are like in the 8,700-600 max range for me. I don't even know if I have one over 1K left on the table. I'd have to take a look. I did do about 40 or so with the optimizer. I did 110 or so by hand. I thought I was going to do all 150 by hand, but I ended up doing 40 with my optimizer. Hashtag RV Live. Over under on Chase finishing in the top 5. That's a pretty good question, but I think I'm going to take Chase finishing worse than 5th. I think there's some better cars, namely the Team Penske cars. There's always Truex, Larson, Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, all these drivers. So I'm going to take worse than 5th for Chase Elliott. Hashtag RotoViz, what do you make of Keselowski's good but not top 5 10 lap? Actually, that's a good question. I want to point something out there. Keselowski went later in the session. He went 10. He went much later. So most people, especially at the top of the board in the 10 laps, they went out right at the beginning of the session and did their 10 lap run. Keselowski did his from laps 19 to 28, so it's inherently going to be slower. There are a couple other drivers that did that as well, though. Matt Kenseth and Kyle Busch, and they were faster than Keselowski in 10 lap. But Keselowski has very good short run speed. I don't know if he maybe has as good long run speed as the Toyotas, so certainly there could be some concern there, but he does have the best pit stall. But I'm not overly concerned about his 10 lap speed, considering he did it later in the session when it's harder to put up those good speeds because the track heats up a little bit. The track was still heating up at that point in time. Hashtag RV Live. AJ Dinger versus Menard in cash. I like Dinger over Menard in cash. Hashtag RV Live. McDowell versus Buscher versus Kenny Britt. What? Britt? Oh, Brett Moffitt? I don't know. I'm not sure about the Brit thing there, but McDowell versus Buescher, I like Buescher. Hashtag RV Live, are Keselowski and Logano inversely correlated? Not necessarily. So Logano and Harvick, I think, are, or Harvick and Kenseth are for sure. But Logano and Keselowski aren't necessarily. Maybe Logano takes the lead on the opening restart. Keselowski gets it through the pits on, at the end of the first segment. Things like that. They could protect for each other. I certainly don't think they're inversely correlated. That said, not directly inversely correlated. That said, I don't think they're positively correlated. It's just one of those, maybe neutral, maybe slightly negatively correlated, maybe a little more than slightly, but certainly not completely negatively like I think Kenseth and Harvick are for sure. Hashtag RV Live, thoughts on Corey LaJoie as a Joe Cheap driver today. We talked about LaJoie and Brett Moffitt. I like both of those two if you're going to go that roster construction. Again, I don't have a ton of that roster construction, but those are the two people keep on landing on in that roster construction. Hashtag RV Live, what's your thoughts on McMurray? Runs around 5th all day as a solid DraftKings points day. That would be if he runs 5th. So, I'm not so sure he's going to run 5th. He practiced 10th and 11th. He qualified 7th. Sure, he could end up finishing 5th. He's a very consistent driver, and he needs to be consistent to make the chase because he is on the inside of the cut line. So on the good side of the cut line of the points right now. But I'm not so sure he has top 5 speed there. Hashtag RV Live, in a single entry GPP, what strategy would you use today? That's a good question. I'd probably go Keselowski and Ty Dillon and look to be different elsewhere. I think it would probably be maybe a Kurt Busch, a Daniel Suarez, a Chris Buescher. One of those, maybe even 2 of those today is how I would differentiate if I was going a single entry. I guess there's some argument for fading Keselowski in a single entry as well. I'm not fading Ty Dillon in a single entry because there's so much safety built in there. But I think there is an argument for fading Keselowski in single entry as well if for some reason Logano passes him or an early caution comes and things get shaken up. Or maybe the Toyotas are sandbagging or all these different things, looking at his 10 lap speed. Maybe there's a little more concern than because, Kyle Busch and somebody else ran faster than him. Kyle Busch and Matt Kenseth ran faster than him going later in the session, just like Keselowski. So I think in a single entry GPP, the ones I would fade are, the one super chalk I would consider fading is Keselowski, but I'd look for contrarian plays in like the Kurt Busch, Chris Buescher type plays there. Hashtag RV Live, what's your prediction for the number of cautions? I have no freaking idea. 6, that includes maybe the stage cautions. So I think that there's 2 stage cautions. Maybe we'll get 4 more total, maybe 1 in each stage and 2 near the end. I have no idea. That's just a guess. Hashtag RV Live, is 90% Team BJ McLeod too much? You joker. Yes, it is. All right, that's gonna, I think, wrap it up there. I haven't seen any new questions come in. I'll give the page a refresh here, but it looks like that's it for now. So we're about 10 minutes before the top of the hour. One thing I did want to mention is Denny Hamlin is still on baby watch. So he's got Christopher Bell there on standby. So there's an added risk there with Denny Hamlin as well on baby watch. Hashtag RV Live, got a question that just came in. Almirola versus Dinger for GPPs. So I just did the rankings. I like Almirola maybe a touch better than Dinger, but I like them both. They're both in play for me for GPPs. All right, I think that's going to do it. We got about an hour and 10 minutes until lineups lock. So good luck everyone this week. Hopefully one of you guys takes down the beast or the whatever they're calling it this week. If I don't take it down. If any of you are entering the Fantasy Racing World Championship qualifier, I think an interesting strategy is to fade Keselowski in a qualifier if you're going for first place and first place only. So just a thought there. I would still probably play Dillon in a qualifier, but just a couple thoughts there. Good luck, everyone, and best of luck to you.